We continue our coverage of the controversial SB 1062.
Plus, they get strange looks and stares. Why people with invisible disabilities have a hard time parking.
And
when's this going to be cleaned up? And they'll say, I don't know, it might not be in your lifetime.
The cleanup effort is underway for Goodyear groundwater.
In-depth, insightful, innovative. Cronkite NewsWatch starts right now.
Good evening and welcome to Cronkite NewsWatch. I'm Tara Molina.
And I'm Dom DeFurio. Thank you for joining us.
Pressure is intensifying at the Capitol as Governor Jan Brewer has landed in Arizona and is making her way back to the Capitol to look at SB 1062, the so-called Religious Freedom Protection Bill. Brittany Vermiglia is live in downtown Phoenix, and she's been following the governor's movements today as she travels back from the Capitol from Washington, D.C. Brittany?
Governor Brewer was in Washington for the National Governors Association meetings, but all attention turned to Arizona as national news picked up on the controversial bill. The storm has been brewing here in Arizona as well. Protesters took to the Capitol last night to voice their opinion on SB 1062. The bill would allow businesses and organizations to refuse service to individuals due to religious reasons. In an interview last night, the governor says she will consider both sides before making a decision.
Certainly, I'm going to go home, and when I receive the bill, I'm going to read it, and I'm going to be briefed on it. We have been following it, and I will make my decision in the near future.
3 Republican state senators have reversed their support for the bill after voting in favor of it last week. Governor Brewer has 5 days to either sign or veto the bill. Live in downtown Phoenix, Brittany Vermiglia, Cronkite News.
And while many are waiting for the governor to make her decision, on Capitol lawn today, opponents gathered to pressure her to veto the bill. Cronkite News reporter Megan Thompson was at the press conference with Latino leaders today. And Megan, what did they have to say?
Well, many compared SB 1062 to SB 1070, the so-called Show Me Your Papers law that captured national headlines 4 years ago. Now, many say they see the similarities in regards to discrimination.
I believe that when a bully thinks that he's done bullying someone, he will follow with someone else.
He says he's undocumented and gay, and Geraldo Torres chose today to tell his story.
I think it's time for us to defend ourselves.
Geraldo stands among legislators and community leaders, and leading the charge against SB 1062 is Senator Steve Gallardo.
We're asking the governor, as we did 4 years ago when we asked her to veto 1070, we're asking her to veto 1062. At the end of the day, discrimination is wrong.
Senator Gallardo compares the two because he says they both preach hate. SB 1062 allows businesses to refuse service to people who don't share their religious beliefs. But Senator Leah Landrum Taylor disagrees, saying that with all the controversy, legislators are misrepresenting the people.
To slap the faces of individuals that live in this state, that work hard in this state, that want to make this state a good place to call home. And we will when this is vetoed.
And Dagoberto Bailon agrees. As chair of the Queer Undocumented Immigrant Project, he represents people like Geraldo and says this state is suppressing instead of supporting.
That sharing our stories is very important because we can't possibly educate people without us sharing our stories and coming out and making ourselves vulnerable.
Senator Gallardo says he wants legislation to take a different direction. He wants to see an anti-discrimination law because he says we need a level of protection for the LGBTQ community. Live in the Media Center, Megan Thompson, Cronkite News.
The Latino caucus brought a big crowd of SB 1062 protesters to the Capitol, but supporters of the bill also joined this morning's demonstrations. Though the majority are speaking out against the bill, we found a few people willing to openly express their support. Pastor Michael Solomon and members of his church believe that SB 1062 is a protection of their rights, and they would like to see the bill passed.
We should have the right as business people and as churches to say, no, you can't force us to do something we don't want to do.
Phoenix Mayor Greg Stanton is rallying the city council against SB 1062. In an 8-1 vote this afternoon, the council officially urged the governor to veto the Religious Freedoms Bill. Stanton says this vote will tell the country that Phoenix is pro-business and pro-people at the same time. Mesa Mayor Scott Smith says he is afraid the debate over SB 1062 threatens to derail Arizona's economic momentum. After talking to other mayors who worked to reverse travel bans that were enacted after SB 1070, Smith says, quote, "They gave us a chance to shine, Then came SB 1062. I learned firsthand in real time how leaders from outside Arizona view Arizona and how damaging this bill is to our reputation.
That reputation is extending to the nation's capital. Before Governor Brewer makes a final decision on SB 1062, some members of Arizona's congressional delegation are speaking out about this controversial bill. Cronkite News reporter Jillian Idle joins us live from our Washington, D.C. bureau with more. Jill?
That's right, Tara. A majority of Arizona's congressional delegation are speaking out in opposition to Arizona's SB 1062. They say it wouldn't just legalize discrimination, but cause a negative impact on the state. Senator John McCain was one of the first to speak out.
This is going to hurt the state of Arizona's economy and, frankly, our image. So I hope that the governor of Arizona will veto this and we move on.
McCain wasn't the only one in Washington reacting to this state law. Representative Ron Barber posted on his website, "This bill will divide Arizona. It will hurt our community and our economy." Other representatives agree, posting similar messages. Representative Kirsten Sinema wrote, "Arizona is better than this. I call on Governor Brewer to show leadership and veto the bill if it is sent to her." And Representative Raul Grijalva says the state needs to focus on other issues such as unemployment and the state's economy.
Let's concentrate on the real things and leave some of the posturing to our speeches and not try to make them into laws.
Now, not everyone in Washington thinks it's their place to weigh in. Representative Paul Gosar's office issued in a statement that it is not within congressional purview, but rather a state issue. Reporting live in Washington, D.C., Jillian Idle, Cronkite News.
Senator McCain is also concerned about our national defense budget. The Obama administration released the defense budget proposal, and McCain says that the cuts will leave our country vulnerable during a time when we need international security. If the budget cuts take effect, they, quote, will weaken our nation's security while the threats we face around the world are becoming more dangerous and complex. Now is not the time to embrace a defense posture reminiscent of the years prior to World War II.
Taking the bar exam is notoriously tough, and military spouses often have to take it multiple times. But reporter Mackenzie Scott met two women who helped change that, at least here in Arizona.
Moving is hard. Taking the bar is certainly hard. But doing both every 2 years is undeniably hard. For attorney and military spouse Rachel Winkler, this was a challenge she faced.
And it really didn't occur to me that, I might have to take a new bar exam every time we move, which is every 2 to 3 years.
That challenge led the Arizona native to a fellow military spouse, former Arizonan Mary Redding, who co-founded the Military Spouse JD Network.
I was our first member, and now we have over 800. So 800 military spouse attorneys across the country.
One of their first successes was in Arizona, where the Arizona Supreme Court accepted their proposal to make life easier for military spouses. A revision in Rule 38 allows military spouses who are lawyers to practice law without taking the bar exam in their new state for up to a year. Congressman Ron Barber says he's proud Arizona was one of the first states to pass the rule, but wants all states to get on board.
One of the things that I want to be able to do in Congress as a member of the House Armed Services Committee is encourage my colleagues in other states where these certifications are not available to work with their state legislature to make sure it happens universally.
Now, Winkler and Redding don't want to rely on legislators. They want to be legislators. The Military Spouse JD Network has partnered with In Gear Career for Homefront Rising, an event that focuses on bringing military spouses into politics.
With such a limited number of people elected that understand the military life, it's more important now to have military spouses and veterans in positions of influence that can influence these policies.
In Washington, Mackenzie Scott, Cronkite News.
Arizona was the second of 6 states to pass the rule.
Coming up on NewsWatch.
Sometimes the little changes make all the difference.
And this lawmaker says the time for change is now.
He may look like a healthy 27-year-old, but that's where his problem lies when it comes to where he parks.
Imagine being stranded.
Getting 16,000 points for the...
From TV banks to computers.
Cronkite NewsWatch starts right now.
this big. That's my kind of man. You've been creating quite a stir.
Those bright blue parking signs telling us a space is for disabled parking, well, they might not be there for long. Reporter Lauren Wells joins us live in downtown Phoenix to tell us about the impact of a new state bill. Lauren?
Those parking spaces will stay in the same spot, but their wording, that's about to change. House Bill 2667 will replace words that one lawmaker says is outdated language.
Representative Stephanie Mock doesn't want you to call her disabled.
We have jobs, we have families, we are, perfectly functioning people in the community and contribute a lot.
That's why she proposed House Bill 2667. It replaces the words handicap and disabled with the phrase persons with disabilities on things like state statutes and signage.
Just because I do not have an arm doesn't mean that I don't see myself as someone who's perfectly capable of performing a lot of tasks.
Mock and others in the disabled community hope changing the words will mean shedding the stereotype that comes with them.
When we change our language, we change our thoughts and we change the treatment of ourselves and other people.
Juliet Martinez has been in a wheelchair since she was 8. She says this bill is progress.
Those small word changes are a huge impact.
Now she uses her voice to bring awareness to the disabled community as Miss Wheelchair Arizona, but she says words still hurt.
Words like handicap and disability just make the assumption that, people with disabilities cannot do anything and that they're not able to do things on their own and live a normal lifestyle.
A myth both Martinez and Representative Mock are hoping to dispel.
It's a really simple change, but I think a powerful and important one. And so I think that's the biggest thing is that, sometimes the little changes make all the difference.
The bill is over 400 pages long in order to cover everything that uses the words handicapped or disabled. Representative Mock says this shows just how big an impact this will have on our state. Live in downtown Phoenix, Lauren Wells, Cronkite News.
Phoenix police say only 30% of people with disabled parking placards use them legally, and many of those who are using them correctly are facing discrimination. Reporter Brittany Thomason explains.
When most people see this sign, they think the spot is reserved for someone in a wheelchair. But that's where the problem begins, because a lot of people who need these spots don't necessarily need a wheelchair.
It's really just dirty looks, people speaking under their breath.
Jay Russell was given a disabled parking placard after catching valley fever.
The sun really affects the valley fever. It takes a lot of your energy out. So normally when I'm walking too, I'm walking a little bit slower.
But people who see him parking in these spots only see a healthy-looking 27-year-old.
The dirty looks, it's just, tough for, to deal with that.
Even people with visible disabilities admit to prejudging.
Even though I'm in a chair, I kind of sometimes am judgmental, like, what are they doing parking there? And then I say, it's an invisible disability. You can't judge people.
And that's a challenge for police who sometimes have to approach people using the spots because they might not look like they should be parking there.
If I see somebody get out of an automobile that looks possibly able-bodied, generally all I ask is their first name because I can run the placard.
It's a tough spot for police and for the people who have a hidden disability.
Something that's supposed to be helpful for you, you shouldn't have to feel that you're, treated like any differently.
Adding stress to those who already have more to worry about than most. In Phoenix, Brittany Thomason, Cronkite News.
The city of Phoenix currently writes about 2,500 tickets for disabled parking violations a year.
Coming up on NewsWatch.
To Goodyear citizens who dealt with dangerous groundwaters for years.
We've experienced quite the dry spell here in the valley, but that's all about to change. I'll have more about that and your full forecast right after the break.
NewsWatch is one of the really big things I will always remember for the rest of my life.
You're lugging around all of your equipment, you are doing all of the work, and that's what makes it so fulfilling to me.
Being an anchor, I think it's a privilege. I enjoy every moment of it.
Seeing your show on air, it is one of the most surreal feelings ever.
What if we could unlock every mystery?
We're at the beginning of a revolution.
That's a huge discovery.
That's never been done before, ever, anywhere.
Touchdown.
No one feeds on curiosity like PBS. Give to your PBS station so future generations can keep asking, what if?
I am a chef. I cook for a living. And I think of PBS as a window to the world. That kind of place where you feel you are part of the story. I want to be part of every possible world is out there. That's when things become really amazing. And when you are able to see stories that make you wonder, makes you think, that's what really makes PBS so meaningful. And that's the kind of TV we need to be supporting today.
The EPA proposed an official plan today to accelerate the cleanup of a very old toxic waste site in Goodyear. Investigative reporter Alex Lanciel is live to tell us more.
The EPA's Superfund program that targets the cleanup of hazardous waste sites has been around since the 80s. But in Arizona, there are still 9 sites that are on the national priorities list for the program, the largest in Yuma. Now, new technology might accelerate the cleanup of a 30-year-old site here in the valley. At the height of the Cold War, as America raced the Soviet Union to space, many defense and aerospace companies made the valley their home. The industry thrived, and a company in Goodyear called Unidynamics was at the center of it.
You would actually hear, not all the time, once in a great while, there'd actually be an explosion over there. And they would get government contracts for a lot of the stuff that they were doing.
Now, 40 years after Unidynamics opened its doors, all you'll find on the land where it once stood is dirt. Today, that same company that benefited from the old wartime spirit is paying for its mistakes.
The original source of contamination at PGA North was the result of waste disposal practices at the former Unidynamics facility in Goodyear.
PGA North is what the EPA calls the North Division of the Phoenix Goodyear Airport Superfund site, the spot Unidynamics called home for 30 years. The site is now on the EPA's national priorities list for toxic waste dumps. The groundwater was contaminated with trichloroethylene chemicals, or TCEs, which the CDC says can cause cancer when consumed.
It was probably 30 years of waste disposal that created the problem, and it's been 20 years of our efforts to understand the extent of the contamination in order to define the remedy to go clean it up.
And in that amount of time, the contaminated plume of water has grown to a length of about 3 miles, forcing the city to shut down 3 drinking water wells. And the contamination is still migrating.
One of my drinking water wells is right over here.
Diane Crone has lived in Goodyear for almost 40 years. She saw Unidynamics boom, bust, and transform into a Superfund site. And she's been voicing her opinion as a member of the community advisory group for over a decade.
And you know, Unidynamics is right there, and my drinking water well is right there. So that's always something that I'm always in conversation with them about, to protect that drinking water well.
Now the EPA is trying to better protect that well, with a plan to accelerate the cleanup that is a first for a Superfund site in Arizona.
The alternative that the EPA is recommending is a combination of iron particles mixing with microbial bugs to basically clean up the water.
With this technology, the Goodyear site could be contained in as little as 8 more years. That may seem like a long time, but it's better than the alternatives that could take decades. For Goodyear, this plan could mean more drinking water in the future.
Now what we want to do is go back and treat where that contamination currently exists so that it will be gone and the aquifer restored.
Drinking water standards are stringent, but if the conditions are right, this method could improve the cleanup at as many as 7 other sites across Arizona, which would mean more groundwater as a source for thirsty Arizonans.
We have to be thinking about our water supply all the time, and because otherwise we're going to be endangered as far as living in this climate.
As the toxic remnants of Unidynamics begin to fade, the lingering past of the Cold War might finally become history. Crane Company, which bought Unidynamics, has 60 days to respond to the EPA's proposed plan. Then the accelerated cleanup will begin. For the investigative team, I'm Alex Lanciel, Cronkite News.
Yet another winter storm blasts through the East Coast, but what we're mainly focused on are two storm systems that are headed into California. As we take a closer look, you can see the first winter storm as it heads in from the Pacific and moving eastward, which is going to bring us some big changes here in Arizona. What you're going to expect are cooler temperatures. Winds are going to pick up by Wednesday around 5 to 15 miles per hour, and then on the weekend, rain and snow. Right now in Phoenix, we're sitting at 56 degrees. And then in northern Arizona, 50s and 60s, 68 for Page, 53 for Flagstaff, and 55 for Show Low. As for tomorrow, we're going to crank back up into 80 degrees here in Phoenix. Prescott, you'll see 61, and Flagstaff topping out at 57 degrees. Spring training also starts tomorrow, which there's going to be a high of 75 out at Salt River Fields, partly cloudy skies and light winds, which is perfect weather to sport your favorite team's jersey. But if you plan to go out to eat after the game, you might want to bring a jacket because temperatures are going to drop about 20 degrees by the evening. And for the next couple of days here in Phoenix, mostly in the highs of 80s, which is above average. And then Friday, that's where that stops, where that second storm begins to come in. And we're going to see 40% chance of rain, 70% chance of rain on Saturday. And Sunday, you'll see 40% chance as well. That's it for your full forecast. I'm Alina Lee, Cronkite Weather.
Coming up on NewsWatch.
Rain won't be the only thing that will shake up spring training. And find out about a dynasty your history professor never knew existed. I'm taking you back to the warning track right after this.
A tradition of excellence, integrity, and innovation.
The second I came in, I fell in love with the program.
The Cronkite School propels students into the new era of journalism.
Students are learning.
Digital, entrepreneurial, and collaborative labs encourage students to shape the future of the industry, and the industry is watching.
We have come here to meet with students at the Walter Cronkite School of Journalism.
The Cronkite School, the journalism school for the digital age.
What if television could sweep us away to another time and place?
Very nice, my lady.
And could take us from the Gilded Age to the Great War. From the heat of the chase to the heart of a queen. No one tells stories like PBS. Give to your PBS station and help bring stories like these to life.
Finally, we're in the home stretch, less than 21 hours away from the first pitch of Cactus League play, but be prepared because you might notice a few changes to the playbill. One of these, of course, is the Coach's Challenge, which has made its way to the ballpark. Major League Baseball will test the new system that allows managers to protest certain calls. The commissioner will review these plays and hand down a decision within minutes. And that isn't the only change. Major League Baseball and the Players Association released new rules regarding collisions at the plate. They hope to prevent crashes like the one that ended Ray Fosse's career back in 1970. And the Wizard of Oz is looking out for 100,000 signatures to make opening day a national holiday. Hall of Famer Ozzie Smith and Budweiser will take the petition to the Oval Office in hopes that President Obama gives the green light. Now, while Smith looks towards opening day, the Red Mountain High School softball team already has its sights set on the playoffs. Cronkite sports reporter Nick Merrick tells us how the Mountain Lions are turning their program into a dynasty.
Focus.
Determination.
Determination or the want to win it.
Red Mountain High School softball is expected to win.
Hey, that way to work.
It feels like we're already right there, no matter what. So someone is trying to get up to that point.
And up to this point, the Mountain Lions have been the reigning champions for the past several years. The evidence is marked on the outfield fence from 2010 to 2013.
And this is where the 2014 banner would hang.
It's a pressure they're looking for. I mean, you know, these kids here, they play good softball and they want to go on and play at the next level.
And all 6 seniors have scholarships to play at the next level. Coach Hamilton says it's their turn to continue the winning tradition.
It's their time, you know, their senior year, and they want to continue the legacy of what we've done.
My sister was part of the program in 2010, and so she has 1 ring, and I have the other 3. So it'd be cool to get the other 5, like the 5th ring, so I could have all 5 on one hand.
Winning is their tradition, but Coach doesn't want to overcomplicate the success.
People have talked about building a dynasty and things like that, and we don't talk like that around here.
They just let their work and winning on the field do the talking. In Mesa, Nick Merrick, Cronkite Sports.
Now, Red Mountain High School starts their journey for another championship tomorrow afternoon in the Lion Country Classic. But the Hurricanes and Sabres don't need to wait until tomorrow to play. After what seemed like an eternity for NHL fans, professional hockey is back in only 1 short minute on the ice in Buffalo. Well, that's certainly going to be a game to watch after those Olympics.
That's it for Cronkite Newswatch tonight.
Thanks for joining us and have a good night.